You can go ahead now, Dan.
Okay, great. Well, good day, everyone, and thanks for joining this webinar. We have people from around the country and probably even around the world. I'm Dan Misleh, the founding executive director of Catholic Climate Covenant, and I'm so very pleased and excited to spend this hour with you as we unveil our new energy program. So welcome to Catholic Energy Strategies and Choices for Sustainable Buildings. Before we begin, let's take a moment to silence our hearts and to listen to God's voice. St. John Paul II once said, hopefully, that, quote, "In this rediscovered harmony with nature and with one another, men and women are once again walking in the garden of creation, seeking to make the goods of the earth available to all and not just to a privileged few, as biblical justice suggests." He goes on, "Catholics and all citizens of the world, you have such a tradition of spiritual generosity, industry, simplicity, and sacrifice that you cannot fail to heed this call today for a new enthusiasm and a fresh determination," unquote. So in prayer today, we ask God to be with us for this next hour as we, as individuals and as communities, find ways to be generous and industrious and to embrace simplicity and sacrifice as ways forward out of our environmental conundrum. Amen. So just a few housekeeping things before we get started. First of all, this webinar is being recorded and a link will be included in the October newsletter, which you'll receive on Tuesday. We plan to have ample time for questions and answers after our presentations. And due to the hundreds of people on the call, we will manage questions by using the chat box in the lower left side of your screen. You may need to scroll down to see that box. You may submit your questions by writing them in this box. I'll try to summarize similar questions and we'll ask them aloud in the Q&A period. The questions and comments are only seen by the presenters. If you have audio issues, it is most likely due to your Wi-Fi connection. You can try connecting via phone for better audio, and that button is on the top of your screen where it says audio. Paz from our staff is also on the call, and she's our technical guru, so if I mess something up, she'll hopefully be able to bail me out and fix it. And at the conclusion of the webinar, there'll be a short survey that'll be sent out to you. Please fill it out and help us to plan better webinars in the future. So our next hour, we want to do several things. First of all, I'd like to give you some background on the history and vision of this program. Dan Last, who I'll introduce in a minute, will share with you about the challenge of Catholic Energy's program, what the challenge is that we're trying to address, and how the program works. Bob Simon will then follow Dan, and he'll explore another important aspect of living up to the challenges of Laudato Si, which is to think differently not only about energy reductions, but also how to get renewable energy into your parish, school, or other facilities. And then after Bob's presentation, we'll respond to the questions in the chat window. So like so much of our work, we now sort of define time, at least at the Covenant, with Pope Francis's Encyclical Laudato Si. So before the Encyclical, I was frankly trying to find a way to catch the attention of more of our Catholic leaders, especially at the parish and school levels. And let's be honest, many of our Catholic leaders, including our pastors and principals, are incredibly busy and pulled in 100 directions. Simply asking them to make creation care and a spiritual and practical priority amidst all the demands on their time was not going to produce much fruit, we decided. But if we had a different way to grab their attention and provide a real benefit to their missions, then maybe we have a chance to make some inroads. And while good Catholics wouldn't admit publicly that we are often motivated by money, let's embrace the fact that this is often the case, including by some of our Catholic leaders. So showing them real, practical, and often some massive saving cost opportunities by helping them reduce waste in their facilities can grab their attention. And while we have their attention, why not also encourage them to use this as a teachable moment to share authentic Catholic teaching about the environment, which includes both care for God's creation and care for the most vulnerable for those who are most vulnerable to our environmental neglect. So this was the germ of the idea for an energy savings program. There's a co-benefit here, which I want to be honest about, and it's related to that reluctant admission that we are sometimes motivated by money. And that co-benefit is that by bringing the Catholic market to energy advisors and energy companies, the covenant ought to be modestly compensated. So the Catholic Energies program does generate some revenue for the covenant, revenue that helps pay the bills and enables us to expand our services to the Catholic community. So then the Encyclical came, and after the Encyclical, we got down to brass tacks to develop first a pilot program in the Archdiocese of Cincinnati with the full support of Archbishop Schnurr, and then we refined our model based on that pilot experience to get us to the place we are today, which is the launching of our program nationally. The Encyclical so inspired us that we saw no reason to set an audacious but entirely achievable goal of working to make the Catholic Church in the United States the most energy-efficient religious community in the world. I hope you see that with this program we may have hit upon the right formula to meet this goal, and with your help I have no doubt that we can. So let me introduce our presenters. First up will be Dan Last. Dan is the Chief Operating Officer for Catholic Energies program and has more than a decade of experience in business, education, and sustainability, often working at the intersection of all three areas. Dan is a passionate, driven, innovative, and natural leader who consistently seeks challenges and thrives in situations where strategy development and execution are key. What I've learned from working with Dan for the last 2 years is that he knows how to combine his detailed understanding of education with his experience managing cost reductions through energy and sustainability programs. And more than anyone else, Dan has brought us to this point today where we are ready to launch the Catholic Energy Program nationally. After Dan, Bob Simon will speak. Bob is a retired energy policy expert. From 2013 to 2016, he worked in the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy as the principal advisor to the Director for Energy, Transportation, and Resources. Prior to that, for 20 years, he was with the U.S. Senate Committee on Energy and Natural Resources, where he was the staff director for many years. He has a PhD in chemistry from MIT. Bob is a parishioner at St. Camilla's Catholic Church in Silver Spring, the largest parish in the Archdiocese of Washington. Staffed by Franciscans, his parish has had a great interest in making care for creation a bigger part of its operations. As a volunteer, Bob has been working with them to achieve this goal. He's also a member of the Archdiocese of Washington Care for Creation Committee. His presentation today will reflect both his professional background in energy and his more recent success in helping his parish to become more green. So let me turn it over to Dan last, and then after Dan will come Bob, and then we'll get the questions. So thank you all.
Great, thank you, Dan, and thank you to everyone for making time today. I am thrilled to have the opportunity to present to you and to formally introduce you all to the Catholic Energies program. Catholic Energies' mission is pretty simple. We are aiming to lower energy costs for Catholic facilities so that these facilities have more resources to direct back into their core missions. As a Catholic organization as well, we are also seeking to provide education and resources to engage Catholics so that they may live their faith authentically, including our common call to be stewards of God's creation and seek justice for our vulnerable brothers and sisters. The opportunity for the Catholic Energies program is really immense. An amazing fact, actually, is that 40% of energy use in buildings in the United States is simply wasted. That means that collectively in this country, we waste more than $200 billion per year and emit more than 2,600 million metric tons of carbon dioxide into the environment, all totally unnecessarily. We also know that there are more than 70,000 Catholic-owned buildings in the United States. And making some pretty conservative and reasonable assumptions about both the size and energy use of these buildings, we know that Catholic facilities are averaging more than $14,000 a year of simply wasted energy costs. When you combine these together, that means that Catholic facilities are wasting more than $1 billion a year. Imagine all the good that your organizations could do by recouping that money. This is the problem that the Catholic Energies program seeks to solve. When we began the Catholic Energy Program, we began with a simple question. Why aren't Catholic facilities more easily able to identify and invest in energy-saving projects on their own? We identified three main problems, three main areas that we thought the Catholic Energies Program could help to correct. And they are, first of all, a lack of bandwidth. It is rarely somebody's job, even at the most advanced organizations, to proactively look for energy-saving opportunities. If these opportunities are pursued, it's usually because there's some other pressing need or catastrophic event that has necessitated it. For example, the lights in the parking lot may all be out, or the boiler may have failed. It's obvious that if you're pursuing those projects, you're going to do so trying to be as energy efficient as possible. But this misses the bigger point, which is that too many worthy projects are simply left on the table because, as Dan said earlier, we are all very busy and it is very difficult to find the time to address these needs, much less invest in them. That's one of the problems that the Catholic Energies Program seeks to solve. The second is a lack of trust. Decision makers in and out of the Catholic Church are often asked to make decisions with incomplete information and don't know that they have the trusted partners they need with their best interests in mind. As a Catholic organization, we hope and believe that the Catholic Energies Program can be that trusted source to help make these projects move more quickly and more easily. And finally, and probably most importantly and most notably, a lack of money. And we know that resource constraints are always going to be an issue, but facilities do have opportunities to finance projects. The energy efficiency finance world has drastically changed just in the past few years, and there are many additional options out there to finance energy projects that we want to make Catholic facilities aware of. That's, again, one of the big problems that the Catholic Energies Program is seeking to solve. Why use Catholic Energies? First of all, we are a single point of contact for all of your projects. No longer do you need to worry about managing multiple vendors, multiple contractors, multiple processes. By completing a single one-page form and providing us with copies of your utility bills, we can connect you with energy procurement, energy efficiency, renewable energy, and storage opportunities. That's right, with one simple form, we can do all of that. Financing options is the second benefit of using Catholic Energies, and I will touch a little bit more on these financing options in just a few slides, but we offer a variety of financing options and will work with your leaders to help choose the right one for your organization. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, we're Catholic, we share your values, and we are not in this for the money. We have carefully vetted all of our partners and ensure that they also share our Catholic values. So you're probably all wondering, well, how does this program work? So let me walk you through sort of a step-by-step of what to expect by working with the Catholic Energies Program. First and foremost, it's important for you and for the Catholic Energies Program to learn about the best opportunities out there for your particular campus. I am pleased to announce that as of today, the new Catholic Energies website is active, and you'll be encouraged after the webinar to visit that site. By entering your contact information on that site, you will have the opportunity to schedule an initial call with myself or somebody from our team to help us and you better understand both the program and what the particular opportunities may be for your campus. Once we receive that single one-page campus information form and your utility bills, we can arrange for your campus to be audited within 2 weeks. We are working with a wonderful implementation partner called Verde Solutions. Verde, as our implementation partner, the best way to consider them would be kind of like our general contractor. And I want to make one thing very, very clear. Verde Solutions prioritizes using local firms to complete the work. One thing that we wanted to make sure by launching the Energies Program nationally is that we weren't in any way threatening local contractors with whom you may have existing relationships, and in some cases may even be parishioners of your parishes or parents of students in your school. We wanted to make sure we preserve that for your campus. Verde Solutions, as a general contractor, has particular expertise to make sure all parts of the project proceed in very expeditiously and very smoothly. And they will make sure that the audit is completed, that the proposal is clear, and that the project gets done on time and on budget. We will then propose all projects that are available to you and your campus, again, within approximately 2 weeks of completing that audit. Included in that proposal will be any energy procurement, energy efficiency, energy generation such as solar or wind, or energy storage, opportunities that may be eligible, that your campus may be eligible for. We will also include in that proposal financing options. And again, I will talk a bit more about what those options might be in just a couple of slides. Finally, or obviously, next, the implementation process will begin. Once we collectively determine which projects are the right ones to pursue in the right order, Catholic Energies, along with Verde Solutions, will manage the entire implementation process from end to end. You will not have to manage multiple contractors. You will not have to manage multiple parties. We will be your sole point of contact and make sure that the project gets done smoothly, and again, as I mentioned, on time and on budget. I will also make sure to mention that by working with Verde Solutions and making sure that we are doing things in an integrated fashion, all utility incentives or rebates will also be included in the project so that you can be assured you are getting the best price for all of the projects. Finally, the education piece is very, very important to Catholic Energies because we want to make sure that we are engaging and inspiring campus members by the great work that you have done. We'll work closely with your social action or education teams to make sure that we are engaging and exciting all of the people in your parish, all the students in your school, or whatever your constituency may happen to be. We will make sure that we work closely with you to get that done. I'm going to cover the next two slides probably more briefly than they should be covered, but just for the sake of time and because these are pretty meaty slides, I want to make sure that I don't get bogged down in too many details. What you're seeing here in front of you are the Catholic Energies financing options for efficiency projects. These would be the most optimal financing options for projects such as an LED lighting retrofit, or a controls upgrade, or some type of HVAC upgrade on your campus. Most folks are probably familiar with the far left option, loans. It is the other two options that we'd like to introduce you to, and again, being aware that we are going to work very closely with you and your campus's leadership to make sure that you best understand these options and pick the right one for you. The subscription model in the middle is typically an off-balance sheet option, and what that means, without getting into too many details, is that it is not debt and therefore does not typically show up on an organization's balance sheet. Because the equipment is managed as owned by Verde Solutions, all maintenance is covered. No money is required upfront, and there are very flexible end-of-term options, meaning that you can choose to upgrade at the end of the term, or you can choose to buy the equipment at the end of the term. It's a very low-risk option and is pretty innovative and has gained a lot of popularity in the energy efficiency finance world over the past few years. The far right option, on-bill financing, is not available everywhere, but where it is available, essentially how it works is a small per kilowatt hour fee is added to your utility bill, allowing you to repay whatever loan the utility company has made to you with each kilowatt hour you use. Once the repayment is complete, that fee will drop off your bill and you fully own the equipment. I want to just also make mention too, because it's probably maybe a little bit confusing. We at the Catholic Energies program use the term campus, not just to think about schools, obviously, but to just describe all Catholic organizations, whether you're on a parish campus, a school campus, a hospital campus. So campus is kind of our catch-all term for all Catholic facilities. This page describes the financing options that are typically available or we would recommend for generation projects, and this would be solar or other renewable energy projects. The power purchase and the energy services agreement are both sort of similar. One is where the power purchase agreement, you'll pay a per kilowatt hour fee for every kilowatt hour your system generates. And the energy services agree is predetermined payment based on whatever the anticipated savings from the system is. Again, and let me make very clear, I understand that many of you are probably still scratching your heads wondering what these all are. I promise you we will work very closely and provide as much additional information about these options. But the best way that I can summarize this section is by saying options exist out there that are beyond simply paying cash or taking out loans. And we want to educate you, your campus, and your campus leaders to make sure that every option is considered so that no worthy project gets left. Let me provide you an example of a sample project. This was a project from one of our pilot projects in the Archdiocese of Cincinnati. It was a T8, which is basically a fluorescent light upgrade from fluorescent lights to LEDs. The project cost $127,500 in total, and we were able to secure a $46,000 utility incentive for the project, bringing the total to $81,500. That led to a $25,000 annual savings, meaning that this parish paid for the project back entirely in just over 3 years. Now, this parish did choose to use cash it had raised to pay for the project, but it could have just as easily chosen to use one of our financing options. The other point I want to make about the financing and about the way Catholic Energies works is that we will strive to meet whatever your financial requirements are. If you desire to be cash flow positive from day one, most of these projects can make that possible. If you desire to pay back the loan or the financing as quickly as possible, we can work with you as well. So again, flexibility and options, that is the goal of the financing piece of the Catholic Energies program. How would you get started? As I mentioned, catholicenergies.org is live and ready for you to come and visit. You'll see on the site 2 calls to action. One for folks who are campus leaders and have decision-making power over their campus, and one for folks who are looking to work with us to help engage, inspire, and educate their own leaders on why the Catholic Energies program may be right for them. You'll be invited to select one of those 2 options where you can enter your contact information and schedule an opportunity to speak with me or somebody on my team to better understand your needs and your project. I would encourage you at this time to go and take a look to see if you can find your most recent utility bills, as this would be something that would be required as well. And in a very short period of time, we want to be able to provide you with any information you require about applicable solutions for your campus, whether it be straight efficiency projects, such as an LED upgrade, or something more complex or involved, such as a solar project or some other type of energy generation project. We stand ready to work with you and are very excited to help your campus begin to cut its waste, save energy, and help the environment. I'll now turn it over to Bob Simon, who can talk about his efforts to make his parish green by changing his energy supply.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. As he mentioned, I'm going to speak on the topic of how to make your parish's energy supply a little more green. Parish environmental performance can be thought of as having several different dimensions. There's the first dimension, of course, is something Dan has been talking about, and that's the efficiency with which your parish is using its energy. Environmental performance can also involve the efficiency with which you use water, your parish waste management practices, and finally, your environmental performance can implicate the source of energy that your parish uses, and that is the point that I'm going to be focusing on in my presentation. Parishes can get green energy in several different ways. People oftentimes focus on the possibility of constructing a dedicated green energy production facility, like installing a set of solar panels on the church roof. And that's certainly one way in which parishes can get green energy. Parishes can also participate in a number of locations around the country in the construction and operation of off-site production facilities, such as a community solar project. Certain states and localities have passed laws making that an option for institutions of all kinds, including parishes. And finally, a parish can enter into an agreement to purchase green energy from verified sources of renewable energy. And again, that's the piece of this picture that I'm going to focus most on in this presentation. Now, when you say green energy, what are we talking about? And that generally is a term that means energy or electricity that's being produced with little or no net emissions of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. So it includes things like solar energy, wind, geothermal, biomass energy, and hydroelectric power. Let's take a step back for a second before we talk about green energy purchases in particular, and talk about some of the basics about how electricity purchases work in general. How your parish purchases electricity actually varies depending on what the laws of your state are. In some states, for example, in the Southeast, electricity markets are vertically integrated. That means the same utility is the entity that's generating the electrons, it's transmitting the electrons over its own wires, and it is selling those electrons to you as an end user. So those are all integrated together in one sort of vertical column. And that local utility has a regulated monopoly in your state over all electricity sales. They're your only choice as a supplier. In other states, for example, in Maryland, where I live, and other states in the mid-Atlantic, retail electricity markets are deregulated. That means that each customer has the option of choosing an electric supplier other than its local utility. So the local utility will maintain the wires that you see on the streets and roads that deliver the electricity from the point at which it's generated to the point at which it's used. But each customer can choose which entity will generate the electrons that are transmitted over the wires to their site. So your electricity bill winds up having two parts. One part is labeled with words like distribution. That's the costs associated with maintaining the wire system that transmits electricity. And then the other part of your electricity bill will be labeled as something like energy supply or electricity supply. And that part pays for the electrons that are delivered over the wires. So if your parish is in a state or in an area where customers have the choice of suppliers, you might already know about that because some energy broker may have called you and said, look, I can get you a great deal. We can cut your bill. I want you to sign you up with specific supplier X. Or your archdiocese may have some sort of energy purchasing cooperative in place to get a better price from suppliers. That's the case in the Archdiocese of Washington. Now, with that as background, let's ask the question, how do you know if an electron's green or not? The Environmental Protection Agency has a great website that is dedicated to the question of knowing more about green power and knowing how green power purchases work. That's the web address sort of at the top of this slide. But let's just take a step back and sort of go through it, what's on the EPA website, and hit the highlights. The electric grid, the wires in your neighborhood, are mixing and distributing electrons from all generation sources. And on a national basis, electricity in the United States is generated mostly by coal, 48%, some by nuclear, some by natural gas, some from large hydroelectric dams and other fossil fuels, and about 2% from renewables like wind and solar. And your parish's electricity use, every customer's electricity use, is going to be a mix of these sources whose percentages will vary depending on the generation mix in your part of the country. But when renewable electricity is generated, a unique renewable energy certificate, or REC, is produced. And by law, it's matched to that particular quantity of renewable electricity generation. The REC, the Renewable Energy Certificate, constitutes proof of legal ownership of that quantity of renewable electricity. And every REC has a unique serial number, which is tracked nationally by the Environmental Protection Agency. Now, when the renewable energy is consumed at a customer's site, the serial number of the REC is retired, and no one else can claim it for ownership or use. So if your parish has its own solar panels, for example, or any person has their own solar panels, and they want to have a legally defensible claim that they're using renewable energy, then they have to register and then retire the RECs from their own facility. If you purchase renewable energy from somebody else and you purchase the REC associated with it, then you own the renewable energy that REC represents. And if you use the energy and retire the REC, then you legally are able to claim to be, quote unquote, powered by green energy. And this is the way that RECs work for all major corporations and institutions that talk about their use of renewable energy. If you walk into a Whole Foods market, or if you walk onto the campus of Northwestern University, excuse me. I'm sorry, I have a small dog. So if you walk onto the campus of Northwestern University, or if you walk into the Detroit Zoo and you see a sign saying, we're 100% powered by wind power, the way that they can justify that sign and that claim is the fact that they are purchasing and retiring renewable energy certificates. And RECs provide a way to compensate renewable electricity generators for their electricity and support a financial market for adding additional renewable power nationwide. Now, how can your parish participate in RECs? Your parish's electricity supply contract may already allow for REC purchases. For example, in the Archdiocese of Washington, our energy purchasing cooperative has negotiated contracts that allow our parishes at any time to request that RECs be added to their purchases, and thus legally provide that their electricity comes from renewable sources, in our cases, wind power generated and procured nationally. 2 large parishes in our Archdiocese, including St. Camillus, have already selected this option. Other parishes are in the process of considering it. So you should check with your energy supplier to see what the pricing might be for RECs in your circumstances. People often think that buying RECs must be some huge expensive imposition on their budget, but that's wrong. RECs are surprisingly affordable. For example, in the case of St. Camillus, the parish which I belong, we have a very large physical footprint. It's about 90,000 square feet. Our annual electric bill is on the order of $65,000 a year. The incremental cost that we had to pay on that $65,000 to have all our electricity come from renewable sources was about $450 a year. Another parish in the Archdiocese that's considering this option just received a quote. They're a smaller parish, maybe a more typical size than St. Camillus. They recently received a quote for an annual increment of $327 a year or $27 a month. So considering when you compare that to the overall size of your electric bill, actually moving to a green energy option and a renewable energy option through purchases of RECs is very affordable. If you participate in the green power market and purchase a significant portion of your parish's electricity through RECs, you're eligible for recognition from the Environmental Protection Agency through their Green Power Partnership. It's a voluntary recognition program. It's for customers who get a significant portion of electricity from renewable sources. If your parish gets more than 20% of its electricity, either from your own generation of it or through purchase by RECs, you can join the partnership on a voluntary basis. You can display their logo to let your parishioners know that your parish is supporting clean energy. And this is a matter that's actually very attractive to many parishes who have younger members, perhaps people who are millennials, for whom green performance is actually important to them in other contexts. And so this is a good way of demonstrating to them in a very visible way that you're supporting renewable energy. Finally, let me just say that Catholic Energies, Dan and his crew can help. If you return the form he talked about and you start the discussion with them, they can certainly look at your situation and they can help you determine what your circumstance is with respect to consumer choice in purchasing your electricity, and what your options really are for procuring green energy, what the costs might be, and what your best option might be to pursue. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. That was just excellent. I wanted to open it up to questions right now, and there's a few, some of which we've tried to answer online, but there's a couple of others that I think would be good for everyone to hear. Lynn from Auckland, yes, Auckland, New Zealand, 7 a.m. there, or 7:34, I guess now, and a day ahead. Lynn asked, how do the views of President Trump on climate change affect the way we work? Let me take a stab at that, and then Bob or Dan, if you want to chime in, or pause as well, please feel free to do so. The Trump administration has presented some challenges to to us in terms of his positions on climate change, the fact that he's pulled out of the Paris Agreement, and so many other things. But our view is that this train has left the station. There are a lot of businesses, the military, the faith community, and just everyday citizens are understanding that there are a lot of really good opportunities to frankly make and act on a conservative case for dealing with environmental questions, including climate change. So, for example, there's the military sees climate change as a threat multiplier, and they understand that by using renewable energy in some of their operations, they frankly can save a lot of money. A lot of cities around the United States are going aggressively green because it creates jobs. It saves the cities money. Their fleets are being replaced with hybrids and more efficient cars and so forth. So there's just a lot happening away from sort of the Washington D.C. policy debates on this that are very encouraging. And we believe that this energy program has the same ability to to accelerate that transition to green energy, to clean up our skies and our water and our land, as well as to live out this call that Pope Francis is, and frankly the previous two popes before him have laid out before us, which is we need to take better care of this gift of creation. And when we don't, the people who are most impacted are, our brothers and sisters living in poverty or incredibly vulnerable to our environmental neglect. Dan or Bob or Paz, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
This is Dan. I would also just add, so much of what's going on, especially in the energy efficiency, renewable energy world, despite what I'm sure many of you have read about in the last few weeks about solar tariffs, happens at the local level. Many utilities, regardless of what happens nationally, have made the calculation that it is simply cheaper and good business to pay customers to use less energy, as opposed to paying hundreds of millions, billions of dollars to build new plants. So what you'll find is that there's going to be a lot of bluster and a lot of talk at the national level, and the action, to nobody's surprise, is taking place at the local level. So I would say don't be down over what you may hear in the news. We really look forward to working with you to look about what the situation is in your local area and working with you to identify the best opportunities there.
Great. Sister Mary Francis from Wisconsin has asked, do we also serve religious communities? The short answer is yes. Dan, you want to talk a little bit about the project we're doing in Burlingame, California?
Sure. Yes, we are very excited. Our one of our second wave of pilot projects has begun, and the project takes place with the Sisters of Mercy. The campus out in Burlingame, California. They have about a 40-acre campus that's made up of both a high school and also a retreat center and some other buildings as well. So we look forward to working with religious communities. We think in many cases they're doing quite a bit of great work, and they can in some cases move much more quickly, even than some of the other institutions that we've worked with. So certainly welcome the opportunity to work with you, and would encourage you to contact us to learn more.
Okay. Another question, this is from Claire in California. What sources of loan financing are you using or recommending for an upfront purchase, and what range of interest rates would you consider low?
Another great question. So our partners at Verde Solutions manage the financing part of the program. So they would be the experts to tell you exactly the answer to this question. But they work with, what I do know is they work with many regional banks. They're based in Chicago, so they've got some great relationships with banks in the Midwest, but who also serve really the entire country. So those are typically the sources of financing, whether it be for the upfront loan, which may cover the full cost of the project upfront, or one of the other options I mentioned. And the interest rate varies. I know people hate hearing that question, but I'll do the best I can to give you an idea of what the range might be. I've seen some of their rates as low as 4 to 4.5%. Obviously, the larger institutions, ones which may have some type of guarantee from a larger organization like a diocese, would get access to better rates. But again, contact us and we can take a look. But we have worked very hard to make the cost of the capital, the interest rates, competitive with what many of you are seeing with your local banks and the local relationships you have.
Great. Next question is, how can I get this presentation to my diocese or my parish? This is from Sister Francis in Florida. If you go to the website, catholicenergies.org, we have two options for you. One, and Dan, if I get this wrong, just chime in. But one is if you're a decision maker and are ready to go on a project, there's one link in that on the homepage to go to. If you're interested in trying to convince decision makers that this is a worthy project to pursue, there's another link, and that offers you a toolbox of how to talk about these opportunities with the people who can make the decisions to go forward with an energy savings project. So there's a whole raft of resources there to help you understand how this works, and much of what you've seen in these slides, plus a lot more reside on the website. Did I get that right, Dan?
Yes, and we will. This PowerPoint will quickly become our. You'll see a new button pop up on our website. We'll post this publicly under the resources tab so that you can access it as well. And as you heard earlier, it will be also sent out. The recording of this webinar will be sent out in the email that will go out next Monday announcing our national launch. So if you're interested in having something very specifically presented to your diocese, certainly contact us through the website and we can talk with you about making that happen. But you will be able to access the PowerPoint from our website probably within the next day.
Okay, two questions that are similar. One from John and from Fran. What's the cost of engaging the Covenant, the Catholic Energies team?
There is
Daniel,
no cost. Sure, there is no cost to engage us upfront. The revenue that we collect comes from fees we collect from our partners. So we offer really a no-cost way to get everything that we've described. So for no money out of pocket, you can secure our, first of all, initial calls, the expertise we provide, and also that proposal. And we will collect our fees when projects are successfully completed from by the partners that we work with.
Okay, next question is from Patrice in Minnesota. We are in a very rural diocese. Have you worked with small campuses that are in the middle of nowhere?
Yes, we have. Worked with some campuses that are pretty far out. The Archdiocese of Cincinnati, if any of you are from there, it's the large diocese and it covers a lot of ground. So certainly. I think one of the issues is not necessarily the location of the diocese, it's the size of the parishes or the schools. So certainly it would be good to work together with some other institutions, parishes or other schools in your diocese to bundle together some projects perhaps. And you may find you'll get better rates on energy and better access to some of the services that we provide. We certainly would never say no to working with you. We just may find that it's a little bit easier to get folks out there and more economical when you're able to bundle together, but absolutely can work with you wherever you are.
Okay, boy, a lot of great questions coming in. The next set of questions has to do with, is it feasible for parishes in a diocese to combine to generate clean energy and share the power? I think this is more like community solar or something that is happening in the Archdiocese of Baltimore, and then make that energy also available to folks in the neighborhood. So kind of the community energy projects. And Dan, while you're answering this, why don't you say something about the difference between energy conservation, energy efficiency projects versus renewable energy projects like solar?
Sure. So the short answer is absolutely. We would really be excited to work on a community solar or distributed solar project with you. It actually is the fact that in many rural areas, or even just suburban areas where a parish may be sitting on quite a bit of land, it's a very smart decision to use that land to do a similar project as they've done in the Archdiocese of Baltimore. Community solar, for those of you who aren't aware, essentially is kind of what it sounds like, where a bunch of different institutions will bundle together to pay for the project and then use the energy either for itself, for themselves, or distribute it to other people in the community. And there's different ways to do that. It is not available everywhere, so we'd have to obviously understand where you were located to better assess whether it's a possibility. But Verde Solutions is certainly able and would actually be very excited to help design that type of project, because they are, again, it's a very innovative way and generates a lot of community benefits from that type of project. So certainly contact us if you have opportunities or if you know you're in a state where it is available. Dan, I'm not quite sure what the difference is that you're talking about, but the real difference between energy efficiency and the energy generation projects, the energy efficiency projects are always going to be done within your own campus, and the energy generation projects can certainly be something that is done collectively. I think that it is a little bit of I won't say misnomer, but a lot of folks, I think, when they hear the topic of sort of energy efficiency or they think about energy, first they go to solar, kind of their minds go there. And we certainly very strongly believe in helping campuses pursue solar projects, because they are typically wonderful ways to get off the grid. In fact, I'm actually very close to doing it on my own house as well. But the analogy or the silly image that I always try to give people is to try to squeeze the sponge as dry as you can first. Wring out as much wasted energy from your facility as possible, and then pursue a generation project. It doesn't make sense to do a generation project like solar if you're also, let's say, running your boiler 24 hours a day, or if you're using very old lighting fixtures, because you're sizing the system incorrectly and you're wasting that energy. So, and again, this is all part of the process that we'll work with you through. So certainly, be in touch with us and we can talk about any specific needs you may have. Dan, you there?
I'm speaking away and I have my phone on mute. Sorry about that. That's what I was looking for in that answer. Do we tailor our program? The next question is, do we tailor our program for state and utility specific incentives or programs?
Absolutely. The example I can give you here is actually, so I'm talking to you from Virginia. Those of you familiar with this region know that we've got Virginia, Washington, D.C., and Maryland all very close to each other, and they all approach the issue very, very differently, and there are different incentives, different utilities, but all very located very close. One of our projects that we're actually just about to kick off is on Bob's campus up at St. Camilla's with Holy Name College, and they're in a unique circumstance where the incentive program that they have, we know, can pay up to 80% of the cost of the projects. And that's a very unique program that's available in the county in which St. Camilla's is located. Certainly, if you know that you are in an area with fantastic utility incentives or have programs that are unique and you just need help kind of navigating it and figuring it out, please do contact us, because we'd love to work with you on maximizing the value of those opportunities. But if you really have no idea, that's also what we can help you with as well. We will work with you, and as part of our process, ensure that any available incentive is available to you as you pursue these projects.
Great. Another set of questions has to do with, it looks like a couple of organizations are already, a couple parishes or schools or other buildings are already either have signed or ready to sign contracts to do solar or other energy projects. Would we still work with them, or should they put that on hold to work with us and Verde to either look at what they're doing or kind of put the brakes on and enlist our help versus what they're already moving forward with?
We certainly would welcome the chance to work with you on those projects. Depending on where they are in the process, it may be beneficial or not to put the brakes on and stop a process from moving forward. What I can say is this: we and Verde Solutions are ready to move as quickly as you need us to. If you came to us, I saw a question from somebody who had a solar proposal that was actually already in front of the bishop. If it's something that you need us to pull together in a couple of weeks, we can certainly get you a proposal to help you at least compare options that may be available to you. I would say at the very least also, it's probably wise to engage us just to make sure that you're thinking about things in the right way. And I don't mean that in a way that's saying you don't know what you're doing on your own, but we have engaged with some parishes who were making choices to pursue projects that we wouldn't recommend, for example, doing in the order that they were suggesting to do them, or they weren't selecting the most efficient option, or also by opening up and offering other financing options. Different projects that may not have been considered may now be back on the table. So it certainly is valuable for you to contact us if you have questions, and we will work with you quickly if necessary to get you all the information you need to make a decision about whether you do indeed want to slow down the process or just pursue things as you were.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Next question is, are there grants available for rooftop solar panels?
There are. Rooftop solar, as a blanket, I can say this. There's a 30% federal tax credit that's available, and depending, again, it's available to tax-paying institutions, of which most Catholic organizations are not, but there are ways that we can leverage those tax incentives to lower the overall cost of the system. On a grant basis, there are grants available, private grants, but there are also state level programs as well. So again, I'm in Virginia. Virginia does not have any state level programs, but Maryland does, just a few miles away. So I would say there's a great website. And I'll post this in the resources section of our website as well. It's DSIRE. It's desire is the desire. If you Google that, you can look up your state and look up all the state level incentives and grants available for various projects. But again, we'll work very closely with you to make sure that we're taking advantage of anything available to you.
Okay. Next question, what are the advantages of working with Catholic Energies versus Interfaith Power and Light, which has been around since 2000? I'll take a stab at this. There's probably no advantage or disadvantage working with either. I have a great deal of respect for the work that Interfaith Power and Light has done over the years, and they really have done some amazing work. If you have a relationship with them and you're finding ways to move forward with your energy projects through some of the programs that they offer, more power to you, and I think that's great. If however, which is often the case, especially for kind of higher up decision makers, bishops and pastors and so forth, sometimes they just like the name Catholic behind it, and we're affiliated with loosely with the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, so that may give those other decision makers a little bit more comfort working with us versus Interfaith Power and Light. But by all means, if you're working with Interfaith Power and Light and you like what you get with them, please move forward. The next question is, do we serve individual households? Dan, you want to talk about that?
Sure. So at this time, we're not working with individual households, but stay tuned. We have plans to offer opportunities for homeowners to get their homes assessed for not just energy efficiency, but also solar opportunities as well. So it is something that I would expect within the next, I'll promise 2 months. I hope it's sooner than that. Check back on our website and we'll certainly send out some information about it. But it is definitely something we want to do. At this time, the Energies program is available to non-residential non-residential institutions and organizations.
Okay. Someone asked what was the name of the group we're working with in Burlingame. It's the Sisters of Mercy West Midwest. Their offices are based in Omaha, but they have a big campus in Burlingame, California. Another question is, so there's a grassroots group in one parish that's hoping to gain the cooperation of the diocese. This is from it looks like Edie in Pennsylvania, and they solar panels don't seem like an attractive option because of the diocese's influx about mergers and selling buildings and so forth. So she's asking, do you work with consortiums on education and the best route to take to move a diocese forward? I'll take a first stab at that. I think this program is available to parishes and schools, hospitals, religious orders, as we said earlier. Any campus that has a building, we're perfectly happy to help make that work. At a diocesan level, as we found in Cincinnati, it can be a little bit more complicated, and often is, because there are a number of decision makers in that process. So, for example, in Cincinnati, we first got the approval of Archbishop Schnurr and then the chief financial officer. But then when we got to the parish level, we also had to, talk to the pastor and the business manager and, the parish council and the finance council. So when you have a number of layers of decision makers in the process, it makes it a little bit more difficult, but certainly not impossible. And in terms of working, at a diocesan level, we're more than happy to come in and speak with a bishop or the CFO about the program, and some bishops are willing to sort of force their will on the parishes, but in my experience, most bishops kind of leave those decisions up to the local parish and the local community. So that's a very long-winded answer to basically say maybe. It sort of depends on your situation, but we're obviously open to talking to you at length about that and see if there's a path forward to work at a bigger level, at a diocesan level. Let's see. Here's a question again. This is from Lynn in Auckland. Is buying green credits really being green if you aren't reducing your actual consumption of energy? That's a great question.
Yeah, let me. This
Lynn
is Bob
must have
Simon.
had her coffee already.
Yeah, this is Bob Simon. So
Go ahead, Bob.
Let me address that. So the answer to that is yes. You have to think of procuring your energy supply and how you use your energy as being sort of complementary issues. They're complementary strategies that work with each other in terms of improving your overall parishes or institutions' environmental performance. In the United States, buying renewable energy certificates makes you a formal participant in the green energy market. And renewable energy certificates, or RECs, in the United States actually are the principal private sector financial tool for generating and promoting green power in the United States. So it plays an essential role in the sort of the economics and making the projects to produce more green power economically attractive in the United States. And so by buying RECs and being part of that market, you are increasing the total pool of investment that is available for green energy projects, either in your locality, depending on where you buy the RECs, or nationwide. So in the United States, that's how our renewable energy markets work, and RECs really are an important part of that.
Dan, can I also say something? The question is about also reducing your carbon footprint. And I think what makes this project really good is that it couples it with education, so that the parish, the diocese that does get involved in this program also gets involved with educating the community on reduction of carbon use.
Dan, I think you still may be on mute.
Thanks, Paz. Yeah, that's right. We do have this education component to the program, which is really, really important to us. Let's see. I'm trying to grab a couple of quick questions before we run out of time. Does Verde work with third parties for financing where they can benefit from tax incentives that are not useful for religious institutions?
I would have to say Probably, but I don't know the specific answer to that. But please send us your specific information and I can take a look into it. But I will say this, Verde is very creative and they have a lot of options at their disposal. So if there's an option out there that they haven't thought of, they're also very willing to consider it and work with you.
Okay. We are by the way, this webinar is being recorded and will be sent around, so you'll have access to these slides. If you want just the slides, we can get those to you as well. Let's see. Let's take one more question. Just a minute ago. Hang on just a minute. Do we serve any countries outside the U.S.? Not right now. We feel that there's plenty of work to do in the United States. Let's see. There's a couple of questions about if you're where did that question go? Sorry.
Dan,
if you're doing, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead,
Bob.
Bob.
There was a question about the website Desire, if it was .com or .org.
I don't know.
Dan,
but,
last.
It is dot. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's .org.
Great.
.org.
I'm so used to just it's in my browser, so I don't know. I never text. Yeah, it's .org.
If you, I will. I think to respect people's time, we will stop answering the questions here. If we didn't get to your question, and you really need an answer, just email info@catholicClimateCovenant.org, and those will get forwarded to the person who can answer them best. So again, info@CatholicClimateCovenant.org. Again, there's a survey that will be coming to you to help us improve these webinars. Please take a few moments to answer those few questions. We have been so excited to bring this to you. These questions are just fabulous, and we hope that we have answered a good majority of them, but if we haven't answered your question, please email us and we'll try to get back to you. Thank you all very much. Have a great day and pray for us and we'll pray for you. Thank you very much and bye-bye.